Bank of Canada did make the 0.25 basis point cut on Wednesday, but what they don't talk about all the time is the monetary policy report. It's all in details. Let's talk about it. So I'm usually late to the party. Bank of Canada did cut the rate, but you already know this. If you have a single agent or a mortgage broker in your social media, they told you 5 minutes after the announcement was made at 9:45 a.m. Now, here's the thing. I called it on the 27th of January because I was following the money markets, the news, and the headlines, and the majority of folks in the business were seeing a 0.25%. Some are less speculative, thinking about maybe a zero cut. So what happened? Here's the clip. It's Monday, the 27th. Let's be honest, we all want a 50 basis point cut, but we're probably going to get stuck with a 0.25 if we're lucky. And if we're not so lucky, it'll be a zero flat move until March. Let's move on. Now, rate cuts are a sexy thing in our profession of real estate. One number gets released, either great news, bad news. As agents, we spin it and always make it sound like it's good news. However, Bank of Canada released a not so sexy report. It's 50 pages, lots of graphs and writing, and then they call it the monetary policy report. So I want to summarize it for you guys, save you time, unless you love reading the report and you want to share what I missed in the comments below. Let's get started. So the first thing that caught me off guard in this report is that Bank of Canada is not expecting a recession. It almost reminds me of 2022 when they said that they wouldn't see any foreseeable period where the rates would go up, and rates, they went up. The thing is, a recession could be categorized as two negative row by row quarterly growth in GDP, but we're not seeing a major crash of 20% adjustment in the real estate market or in the money markets. However, our dollar is tanking, but that's subjective because when you compare it to the US dollar, I'll get into it in a minute, it really, Canada is on an even ground with most other currencies compared to the US in terms of dollar. Now, let's talk about the second point. Now, spending in real estate, it's very important because when you have a recession, people typically don't spend. However, this report says otherwise. Spending in the residential real estate is recovering. Now, it's not referring to actual home values going up. It just means people are doing the following: renovations, selling their homes, and paying agents commissions. Now, this is very typical because in 2023, we had some of the lowest volume sales. In 2024, made a comeback. So obviously, in order to sell your home, you renovate and you pay your agent commission. Now, this is going to be a sign of 2025 being a higher volume market. I think it's really too early to tell right now, but we'll see in the next few months, especially approaching the spring market. Now, the labor market remains soft in Canada. Unemployment is going up. We are not a competitive labor force. We have a lot of employees, especially in the government sector, who has been hiring majority of the people. And in my opinion, the labor numbers are a little bit thrown off because the amount of hiring that happened in the past 2 years in the government sector really surpasses most of the private sector. And what we're seeing right now is at this kind of growth, it's unsustainable to keep hiring government employees. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I saw a video that talked about we have more CRA employees than we have Army individuals serving. So that if that's remotely true, that's very alarming and tells you a lot about our country. Now, when we think about inflation, most of us know that inflation may be at 2%, but everything around us, from food, groceries, even housing costs, has not come down. It stayed quite high. But Bank of Canada believes that it's right where it should be, in the realm of 2%. Now, I think most of us would disagree with that, but that's the reality. Now, if you look at chart 11, somewhere here, it says essentially the following, that Canadians feel that inflation expectations have largely returned to normal. This essentially means that the increase in prices, we're comfortable with where they are right now. And I'm not sure who is interviewed in this manner, how the survey was conducted, but I can tell you that most Canadians do not feel that sentiment about inflation. Now, consumers are apparently planning to spend more money in 2025 and 2026. I'm not really sure which consumers those are. I don't necessarily have those kind of conversations with my clients. I think on the other hand, people are more conscious about putting money aside and waiting to see how the market adjusts. And Canada's growth for 2025 and 2026 is at 1.8%. But there's good news. Most countries, including Canada, have been equally devalued in their dollar compared to the States. So there's that. Now, here's the thing. This report doesn't come off very positive. And like most reports, they're typically written in a style to provide you information, comparison analysis, etc. Does this mean the market is going to crash? Are we going to see a major recession? I mean, if you keep thinking that way, eventually you'll be right. But if we look at the market as a whole, if you look back 30 years and you look at all the recessions, the condo crashes, the 2008 market adjustment, everybody wrote at some point news and headlines, and sometimes that kind of information does not give the biggest confidence to buyers, individuals, and people overall. However, you have to understand that. I think the best way to go about gathering information is to gather everybody's opinion and remember that somewhere in the middle, the truth lies. And just going off of a single Bank of Canada report and making a decision about your next real estate purchase may not be the best way to go about it. I think it's always a question of, as I always say to my clients, for example, if you are renting for $3,000 a month and you could be an owner for $2,000, $2,500 plus your maintenance, and let's say you'll be a little bit over the $3,000, but you'll own your property, you're gonna potentially build equity on it down the line. Because remember, potentially there's no guarantee in real estate. But if you look back, for example, 30, 40 years, even 50 years, there was growth. So my perspective on real estate is that you need to always approach it with a cool head. Now, I'm an agent. I'm sure some individuals think that agents are like used car salesmen. It's always a good time to buy a house. Not the case. You should really only buy real estate when you can afford it, when you have budgeted for it, and that usually makes the most amount of sense long term. I mean, if we look at Warren Buffett's strategy on buying stocks, he's always doing the opposite of the market. When the market is scared to, for example, buy, he buys. When they want to sell, he sells it to them. And so you need to look at real estate, I think, in a very similar manner. Now, this is just my take, but I would say a cool head always prevails. Gather all the information that you can to make the right choice. And at the end of the day, we're not talking about investors. This is strictly for end users, because investors they have a very different strategy today. I think most investors have learned the hard lesson that the condo market really it caused, as I would call it, a lot of blood to be spilled on the streets, because people were way over their heads. Variable was a very low mortgage, and COVID market, especially the first 2 years of COVID, in the real estate condo side was very hot. People bought blindly, paying over asking just to get their hands on to make a quick buck. That didn't happen and didn't pan out. And today's condo market is a pure reflection of that. Now, here's a comment I really want to make, because I read Reddit comments, YouTube comments, and there's always people who are talking about market crashes. You just have to keep waiting, timing the market. Here's the thing. Timing the market, I'm not an expert. If you can time the market, great. Do it. Share it with us if you can. My opinion is the following. Today, downtown Toronto, is probably one of the best markets I have seen in my short period of time in real estate to buy a condo. If that's not a crash, I'm not sure what you would call it. We are seeing right now prices on condos revert back to 2019. So you can essentially wash away 5-6 years of growth by buying today. And this is huge, because when we're looking at it long-term perspective, if you are an end user and seeing as how rents, even though rents are coming down, they're still quite high. I think in most cases, if anybody's making a decent salary out of university, out of college, you can probably afford to buy a bachelor. It doesn't have to be downtown. It could be Midtown, for example, for $400,000, for $450,000, live in it for 4 or 5 years, build your equity, instead of waiting 2 years when the market can actually bounce back and you'll have to be paying higher prices. That's just my take. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. If you have any comments, angry comments, put them down below. Have a great day. Take care.